Welcome to today's deep dive. We are jumping straight into a topic that feels, universally relevant
Oh, absolutely.
and frankly, deeply stress-inducing for a lot of people who are just, navigating human development.
Yeah, it really is.
If you have ever felt that crushing ambient pressure to make sure a child specializes early in a single activity,
Or a sport.
right, a sport,
Yeah,
just to guarantee their future success, you are going to want to hear this.
for sure.
Even if you don't have kids. If you are just observing the hyper-competitive talent markets we live in today, you know the exact anxiety I'm talking about.
It is entirely ubiquitous. You see the physical manifestation of it on the weekends at the local parks with travel teams for
Oh
6-year-olds.
my goodness, yes.
You see it in the intense, color-coded schedules families keep on their fridges.
Yeah.
And you certainly feel it in the broader cultural messaging.
The pressure is just immense.
It really is. The pressure to figure out your definitive lane right out of the gate,
Yeah.
it's driven by this intense fear of functional obsolescence.
Falling behind.
It's exactly. Falling behind before you even start.
That is precisely why we are looking at some truly fascinating research today. We are pulling from an incredibly insightful piece of writing titled The Strategic Advantage of Early Exploration.
Took a great piece.
And we are pairing that analysis with the foundational philosophy of a family decision framework called ACTIQO.
Which is super practical.
Super practical. Our mission today is to unpack why this seemingly bulletproof, purely mathematical pick-a-lane early strategy might actually be structurally flawed.
Completely flawed.
We want to discover what researchers are actually observing when they reverse engineer the childhoods of true elite performers. Okay, let's unpack this.
We need to start by examining the core assumption that drives all of this parental and cultural anxiety.
Right, the root cause.
Because on the surface, the logic of early specialization feels unassailable. It relies on a very linear inputs equals outputs model of human development.
It makes complete mathematical sense in your head.
It does.
The logic is essentially the 10,000-hour rule on steroids. Choose a sport or an activity as early as possible.
Commit to it deeply.
Practice constantly, because the earlier you start focusing your neural pathways on one specific domain, the more time you have to compound those skills.
That's the theory, anyway.
Right. If you start a child in specialized tennis coaching at age 4, the assumption is they will be mathematically miles ahead of the kid who picks up a racket for the first time at age 10.
You view it as a straight, unbreakable line of progression.
Exactly.
But what's fascinating here is when researchers actually study the backgrounds of elite performers, and we are talking about the absolute top percentiles of athletes, musicians, professionals,
The best of the best.
the best, they find something that completely shatters that linear logic.
Really?
Yeah. They find that a statistically massive number of these elite performers did not specialize early at all.
Wow.
Their early years completely contradict the modern hyper-specialized model.
Okay, I see the theory there, but let's be real for a second. As a parent, or even just as an observer on the sidelines, it is terrifying to watch a 12-year-old who has played year-round soccer for 6 years absolutely dominate a kid who just decided to try it out.
Oh, it is. It's tough to watch.
How does anyone hold their nerve in that moment? It feels like the data's telling us one thing, but our eyes are telling us that the specialized kid is clearly winning.
I get that. But that is the illusion of the early peak.
The early peak?
Yes. You're looking at a localized, short-term advantage, and you're mistaking it for a long-term trajectory.
Ah, I see.
What the researchers are finding is that the kids who look like they are falling behind early on are actually engaged in a critical phase called the sampling period.
The sampling period.
Right. Instead of this intense, narrow focus from day one, these eventual elites spent their childhoods aggressively exploring.
Just trying things out.
Exactly. They played diverse sports, they navigated entirely different competitive environments, and they focused on building a vast, generalized range of physical and cognitive skills long before they ever chose a single path.
So instead of being the 6-year-old who only plays hockey 365 days a year, running the exact same drills over and over,
Right.
they were the kid playing unorganized tag in the summer, trying gymnastics in the winter, messing around with the basketball in the spring.
You were dabbling.
Dabbling. And while the modern youth sports complex looks at dabbling as a catastrophic waste of training time, the data shows it is the actual foundation of elite long-term performance.
It is a profound paradigm shift. This period of exploration is not a delay in their development.
It's not wasted time.
No, the exploration is the development. It helps children build broad, adaptable neurological and physical foundations.
That makes a lot of sense.
When kids experience multiple sports or entirely different physical constraints, they are developing a complex web of coordination.
Because they're doing different things.
Exactly. Enhanced pattern recognition and ultimately neuroplasticity.
Because every single environment is demanding a totally different cognitive load, right?
Yes.
The friction of the learning curve is actually what is valuable there.
Precisely. They are constantly being forced to solve different types of physical and mental puzzles. They aren't just memorizing one solution to one specific problem.
They're learning how to learn.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Our source material gives us some highly specific examples of what this cross-pollination of motor skills actually looks like.
It's fascinating.
And it highlights how the cognitive benefits start stacking up in ways you wouldn't initially expect.
Let's hear it.
Let's look at soccer. The research points out that a child playing soccer is developing intricate footwork and high-level spatial awareness.
And if we break that down, soccer is what we call an invasion game.
An invasion game.
Yeah. You are navigating a massive dynamic field. You are manipulating an object with your feet,
Which is hard.
which requires immense peripheral vision. And you constantly have to calculate the dynamic geometry of 21 other moving bodies.
It's wild when you put it like that.
Your brain is essentially acting as a real-time spatial physics engine.
Right. The cognitive load is very specific to open field pattern recognition.
Exactly.
But then, let's say that same child swaps their cleats for sneakers and goes to play basketball.
A totally different environment.
Totally different. The physical dimensions and the rules change entirely. The court is smaller. The pace features incredibly rapid transitions.
Very fast.
And the heuristic processing, the quick decision-making under duress, has to happen in split seconds in a highly confined space. Plus, you're developing high-level teamwork dynamics.
The constraints of basketball force the brain to adapt its decision-making speed. You are no longer managing a massive open field.
You're boxed in.
You are managing tight, vertical, confined chaos. You have to read your teammates instantly. And then imagine that same child completely switches contexts again and hops into a swimming pool.
Which is a total departure from both of those.
Complete departure.
The source notes that swimming develops endurance and body control, but it's so much more than that.
Oh, absolutely.
You are stripping away the team element, you are stripping away the ball, and you are stripping away gravity as you know it.
Exactly. You are transitioning from a team-based, reactive invasion game to an individual, repetitive motion, highly internal sport.
It's just you and the water.
You are managing your aerobic rhythm, fighting unique fluid resistance profiles, and developing intense bilateral proprioception just to move efficiently through the water.
Bilateral proprioception.
Knowing where both sides of your body are in space. It's a completely different neurological demand.
But playing devil's advocate here for a second,
Go for it.
if a kid ultimately wants to be a world-class basketball player, why do they need the bilateral proprioception of a swimmer or the open field dynamic geometry of a soccer player?
That's the classic pushback.
Aren't those just wasted hours that could have been spent shooting free throws?
That is the million-dollar question. And it is exactly where the 10,000-hour rule falls short.
How so?
It ignores how human beings actually synthesize information. These distinct skills, the spatial geometry from soccer, the rapid heuristic processing and teamwork from basketball, the neuromuscular control from swimming,
Yeah.
they do not stay isolated in separate compartments of the brain.
They don't.
No, they transfer. This is the skill transfer phenomenon.
So the skills actually bleed over into the new domain.
They do.
The structural adaptations remain even when the sport changes.
Exactly. When a child eventually transitions out of the sampling period and decides to specialize.
Let's say at age 14.
Fair. At age 14, they realize they are entirely captivated by basketball and want to commit. They aren't starting with a narrow, fragile toolkit.
They're not starting from zero.
Far from it. They are bringing this massive, cross-pollinated arsenal of physical and cognitive frameworks with them.
That is amazing.
They have the metabolic endurance of a swimmer, the footwork of a soccer player, and a central nervous system that is highly accustomed to adapting to new constraints.
They are a profoundly more complete, adaptable athlete than the child who only ever learned the highly specific, repetitive motions of a single game from age 4.
It is the athletic equivalent of having a liberal arts degree before going into a highly specialized PhD program.
I love that analogy.
You just have more mental models to draw from.
But the research makes it clear that it is not just the biomechanical superpowers that are being built during this exploration phase.
Not at all.
The conversation shifts heavily toward the invisible drivers.
The psychology.
Yes, the psychological architecture that actually dictates long-term success.
Yes, the internal locus of control. We can talk about motor skills all day long, but the ultimate filter for elite performance is psychological endurance.
What actually keeps a person grinding through plateaus year after year?
Exactly.
The research highlights something fundamental here. Exploration is the only reliable mechanism for a child to discover what they genuinely enjoy.
And enjoyment isn't treated as a nice, fluffy bonus here.
Not at all.
It is identified as a structural mechanism for long-term grit.
We have a bad habit of treating enjoyment as secondary to discipline, don't we?
We really do. But there's a massive neurobiological difference between a child who practices naturally, because they are intrinsically motivated, and a child who practices solely to satisfy external pressure.
Let's dig into that contrast. When a kid is intrinsically motivated, when they've sampled the buffet and found the thing that truly lights up their dopamine receptors.
They engage in what we call deep practice.
Deep practice.
They voluntarily stay longer, they push through frustration, and their brain is highly receptive to learning.
Now compare that to the cortisol-driven reality of forced practice.
It's a stark contrast.
If a child is pushed into early specialization, the choice was made for them. Their progress is being fueled by parental expectation or maybe the sunk cost fallacy of expensive coaching.
Or fear of disappointing a team.
Right. They might achieve high technical proficiency for a while, but it requires an immense, unsustainable amount of external energy to keep the system moving.
And what happens when that external scaffolding eventually falls away?
Or the child hits adolescence and gains autonomy.
The system collapses.
That is the textbook definition of burnout.
It is.
It's not necessarily physical exhaustion, is it? It is the total depletion of intrinsic motivation.
Precisely. But the child who was allowed to explore, who tried 5 different things and independently concluded, this specific pursuit is what I love.
They have an internal engine.
Yes. They pull themselves forward through the inevitable difficulties of mastery, rather than having to be constantly pushed by an adult.
And during that messy, unoptimized sampling period, they are building another crucial psychological asset.
Precious.
The skill of being a beginner.
Oh, that is so important.
The research points out that kids who constantly pivot between activities are routinely forced to adapt to entirely new hierarchies.
New coaches, totally foreign team dynamics.
And steep, uncomfortable learning curves.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, think about what an unbelievable, universally applicable life skill that is. This varied background repeatedly forces a child to walk into a room or onto a field, knowing they are the absolute worst one there.
Which is terrifying.
It is. But it teaches them how to survive that discomfort. It systematically dismantles the paralyzing fear of failure.
That is such a vital point. The fear of failure stops so many adults from ever trying anything new.
Definitely.
But these kids, they have failed at learning to dribble, they've swallowed water learning to swim, they've completely missed the ball in tennis.
They have experiential proof that the beginning is always a mess.
And that they will survive the mess.
Over time, that repeated exposure to being a novice breeds a profound psychological resilience.
It builds armor.
It does. And this brings us back to the reality of the elite performers we discussed at the top of the show.
Right, the eventual elites.
When they finally arrive at the starting line of specialization, they're equipped with a diverse motor skill foundation, deep intrinsic motivation, and an absolute fearlessness regarding the learning process.
So what does this all mean?
It's the big question.
If you are listening to this right now and you are actively trying to navigate this hyper-competitive landscape, whether you are making decisions for your own children or you are just trying to understand how to cultivate talent.
Right.
How do we operationalize this research?
Luckily, the source material offers a brilliant, highly practical pivot.
It really does.
It suggests completely rewriting the core question we ask ourselves.
That is the turning point. Because the old question, driven by the anxiety of the 10,000-hour myth, was which single activity should we commit to and how quickly can we start?
Which is an impossible, frankly unfair burden to place on a family or a young child.
It operates on the false premise that there is one correct path.
And if you fail to identify it by kindergarten, the window of opportunity slams shut forever.
It creates a culture of panic.
Absolute panic. So the framework we were looking at suggests asking entirely different observation-based questions.
Like what?
Instead of demanding a lifelong commitment up front, we should be asking, what specific experiences help this child stay curious?
I love that.
Which activities organically energize them? Where do we see their confidence and their natural enjoyment peaking?
Which activities energize them? That is a subjective metric, sure, but it is one you can actually observe in real time.
You really can.
You can physically see the difference between a kid who comes home from practice emotionally depleted and hollowed out versus a kid who is physically exhausted but practically vibrating with enthusiasm.
Night and day difference.
And to help families shift from just intuition to actual data, the text introduces a specific framework called ACTIQO.
Let's get into this.
That is spelled ACTIQO, pronounced ACTIQO. You can find their full methodology at guideiti.com.
ACTIQO is a fascinating tool because it treats family scheduling not as a logistical puzzle to be solved, but as an ongoing experiment in human development.
It changes the whole mindset.
They help families systematically reflect on the varied activities in a child's life by tracking 4 distinct metrics over time.
Let's break down those 4 metrics because this is where the philosophy becomes actionable for you at home.
The 4 metrics are time, cost, energy, and enjoyment.
Let's look at the first half of that equation, time and cost.
The hard data.
Right. These are the objective, undeniable realities of modern extracurriculars.
Exactly. Time is the numerator. How many hours is this activity actually extracting from the family's week?
And you have to factor in the hidden time, too.
Oh, absolutely. The commuting, the weekend tournaments across the state, the physical recovery time.
It adds up fast.
It does. And cost is the financial denominator. Club fees, specialized gear, travel expenses.
Those 2 metrics represent the tangible, objective capital the family is deploying.
But the genius of the framework is pairing those highly objective investments with the deeply subjective returns.
Energy and enjoyment.
Right.
And I want to debate this for a second.
Let's do it.
Because measuring a kid's energy or enjoyment is notoriously tricky. How do you accurately measure enjoyment after a crushing, heartbreaking loss?
That's a great point.
A kid might be crying in the car ride home, saying they absolutely hate the sport. Does that mean the enjoyment metric is 0?
That is exactly why you have to track this over time to separate the acute emotional spikes from the baseline trend.
So you look at the average.
Yes. You have to differentiate between what psychologists call type 1 fun and type 2 fun.
Type 1 and type 2. Explain that.
Type 1 fun is a roller coaster. It's easy, instant gratification.
Pure dopamine.
Right. Type 2 fun is effortful. It involves struggle, frustration, and occasionally tears, but it results in a deep, lasting sense of satisfaction and competence.
Like climbing a mountain.
Exactly. The ACTIQO framework forces you to look at the aggregate data. Are they energized by the challenge over the course of a 3-month season, even if a specific Tuesday practice was absolutely miserable?
That makes perfect sense. It's about decoupling the temporary exhaustion from the underlying satisfaction.
Exactly.
You are looking for the activities that consistently refill the child's emotional battery, even when they demand a lot of physical or mental output.
And when you start matrixing these 4 variables together, time, cost, energy, and enjoyment, across all of a child's varied pursuits during that sampling period,
What happens?
the fog of parental anxiety really starts to lift. You begin to see undeniable, data-backed patterns.
The text is so compelling on this exact point. It allows parents to separate the signal from the noise.
It really does.
You can finally distinguish the activities that are genuinely fueling your child's long-term development from the ones that are merely filling space on a calendar out of a sense of obligation.
It happens to the best of us.
Ah.
We sign up for the Elite Travel League because everyone else in our socioeconomic circle is signing up for it.
FOMO is real.
It is. We view an empty afternoon as a missed optimization opportunity.
But when you sit down and look at the ACTIQO metrics,
You might have a stark realization. You might see that the incredibly expensive high-time commitment travel baseball team is consistently yielding low energy and low enjoyment.
it is a net negative drain on the child. But simultaneously, the data might show that the low-cost, low-time commitment local robotics club, or maybe a community theater group, is producing off-the-charts energy and enjoyment.
It gives families the empirical permission they need to step off the conveyor belt.
Permission to stop the madness.
Exactly. It removes the peer pressure from the parenting equation. Understanding those unique, individualized patterns allows families to make incredibly clear decisions about where to allocate their resources.
It replaces the ambient anxiety of are we doing enough?
With the targeted clarity of are we doing the right things for this specific child?
Because the ultimate takeaway of this entire analysis, the absolute core truth we want to hammer home today,
The big lesson.
is that elite success, long-term mastery, and genuine fulfillment rarely come from doing more things earlier and faster than everyone else.
The linear early specialization model is largely a myth.
It is a myth that sells a lot of private coaching.
It certainly does, but it does not produce resilient, adaptable human beings. The data firmly supports the opposite approach.
Exploration.
Yes. Mastery comes from allowing an aggressive, broad period of exploration. It comes from discovering the unique intersections of curiosity, intrinsic motivation, and engagement.
It is about giving the individual the time and the grace to sample the entire buffet before ever demanding that they choose their final meal.
Wonderfully put.
And what is so striking about this realization is that it isn't just a parenting hack.
Not at all.
The underlying neurobiology and psychology of the sampling period applies to human development at any stage of life.
Without a doubt. We spent this time analyzing how elite athletes and performers built their impenetrable foundations through broad exploration,
Following their organic energy.
trying entirely foreign environments and mastering the fine art of being a resilient beginner.
This raises an important question.
It does.
And it is a fascinating pivot when you think about where the world is heading right now.
If elite performers succeed because they were allowed a period of broad exploration, following their energy, trying new things, and completely abandoning the fear of failure, are you allowing yourself that same grace to explore new interests in your own adult life? Or are you forcing yourself to specialize too soon?
Wow, that is an incredibly profound paradigm to chew on.
It's worth reflecting on.
Whether you are analyzing a 12-year-old's sports schedule, reflecting on your own career pivots, or just trying to navigate this fast-changing world, the lesson remains the same.
Discover what sparks your curiosity.
Do not trap yourself in a narrow lane before you understand the broader landscape. Keep exploring, embrace the friction of being a beginner, and follow the energy. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.
Keep your curiosity alive, and we will catch you next time.